Today I'm back with 10 more JRPGs that could have been great or excellent without their one fatal flaw that completely ruined them for me. And get ready, cause there's a lot of RPGs here that I've never covered before, so let's begin! Number 10, Tales of CDeria. This game isn't as terrible as they say. Questionable English dub? Sure. Forgettable protagonist? Sure. Annoying sidekick? Absolutely. Wrongfully advertised main female character? Yeah. Semi-open world that feels hollow? I agree. We could go on, but none of these flaws were game-breaking for me. None of them are fatal. In fact, I still finished it despite the horrendous final boss fight that I almost didn't beat. I rage quit on it, but I read some tips online and miraculously pulled through. However, the reason why I almost rage quit for good is because of the game's real fatal flaw, the battle system. It's just bad. It wanted to be Tales of Graces again, to be challenging, but it just ended up being a convoluted disaster. What kills it are the blast gauge and the spirit chain. In Graces you build up combos by trying different combinations of attacks, but each starts doing less and less damage if the combination isn't right. Well, in CDeria it's all over the place because you're always aiming to increase the spirit chain, all in order to fuse Sori or Rose with the Seraphim party member, which is called Aromatization. But the spirit chain is the one that allows for up to 4 linked attacks, which is exactly what you want to do more damage. But moving around, dodging with a sidestep, executing your combos, it all feels weird. It's just an unnecessary complex battle system, and honestly, a Tales of Graces wannabe. Number 9, The Legend of Legacy. This was originally released on 3DS, but last year it was remastered for current platforms. It has a lot of flaws, but not a single one that comes close to being as fatal as the one that ruined it for me. Strange, cause it's the kind of flaw that usually doesn't ruin anything. So you choose between 7 characters, but each has like their own 2 default party members, which are of the ones you didn't choose. Off you go to an adventure of exploring the many areas surrounding the island of Avalon and complete maps for money or prestige with the king. The gameplay is very similar to the Saga series, which I covered in the previous episode, but it's not as non-linear. It does feel like the cryptic nature of those games carries over here, however. You know where you need to go most of the time, but it feels repetitive because there's only so many areas to explore and they come with a lot of flaws. It is within these areas where you start falling into the what the hell do I do, where the hell do I go? The game's difficult by design since you don't level up. Instead, like in the Saga games, characters may gain random stat increases after every battle. So it's a grind fest just to get those stats or money to get the best equipment and items possible in town. The completion of the maps is a bit of a chore too, especially because it's so hard to avoid the enemies when all you're trying to focus on is, well, the exploration, right? But none of these things are what I think of as the fatal flaw. They're nuances I could tolerate if only. If only this game was more story-driven. Characters rarely interact with each other, there's barely any dialogue, barely any development. You complete one map and close to 0 events happen other than reporting to the king. I don't care for these characters other than my protagonist because most of the plot, which is bare bones, revolves around her. I mean, if you want me to put up with all the little flaws a game like this has, at least give me a strong narrative. Otherwise, your game just becomes a middle-of-the-road release which is average at best. Number 8, Steambot Chronicles. While this game is still very obscure nowadays, believe it or not, it's a big cult classic. Its fans absolutely adore it. Well, I'm sorry, but I can't see why. And I did try. It's a rare exclusive to the PS2 developed by Irem, yeah, that classic company that's been there since the 80s. It takes place in a fictional industrial revolution where people use the mechs called Trotmobiles for pretty much everything. You play as this guy called Vanilla. Yeah, I'm not kidding, that's his name. In a world that's non-linear, basically a mini open world game. So tons of story and side quests await you here. Decisions play a big role, especially at the beginning for molding your character's personality. You have a big town to explore with many different shops, NPCs and minigames. There's also a day and night cycle. Music also intercedes here. Vanilla can play his instrument in a short rhythm game, but I never got to find what was the point. because the gameplay is completely ruined by the Trotmobile controls, and so I quit. The game's an action RPG, but to move around, in and out of battle I should clarify, everything is upside down! The controls are inverted and locked to the triggers with a convoluted joystick system. In other words, moving around is ass. I never got used to it as hard as I tried. Why couldn't these have regular controls? What was the damn point in making them all horrible like this, all backwards and inverted and... It's infuriating because it honestly seemed like a very unique and interesting video game. But when what should be the most basic feature to develop, which is freaking moving, is terrible, then you know the game's broken. A direct sequel was planned but obviously cancelled. A spin-off on the PSP was released, but I don't remember much about it. Maybe someday I'll cover it again. But this PS2 game, no thanks. Number 7, Dual Orb 2. This is a Japanese exclusive, with a fan translation that's been out there for many years. Sadly, the first Dual Orb isn't fan translated, but I didn't feel like it was connected to this one, or that it's necessary to play it first. Here you control Aleph, a young boy adopted by the High Priest of Garav. He and his best friend Prince Lagnus embark on a journey when they learn that their nation and another one will go to war, but also so Aleph can prevent Lagnus from going insane on the path of revenge. Sounds dark, and it is, but it's mostly narrated in the traditional light-hearted JRPG plot. The game has good music and graphics, nothing extraordinary but interesting enough to reminisce about the good old classics. However, it's the battle system that stands out a lot here. It's a huge jump in graphics, PlayStation level of graphics, that's definitely impressive. So it's turn-based, traditional, classic, with a menu system, every character with regular attacks and magic. The game focuses more on its weapon system, which makes a big difference for every character equipping one. Your attacks might be completely useless if you don't have a good weapon equipped. But other than that, it's a good JRPG on the SNES that was simply not localized. So what is its fatal flaw, you ask? The game is insanely frustratingly hard. It's a big grind fest, and I mean big, especially because the economy system is ass, and its weapon system is forced on you. But it's the insane amount of damage you receive often from the bosses for absolutely no justifiable reason. You are at the right level and still get utterly destroyed, even if you continue using one character to heal until they run out of MP. And if that happens, forget it, you're done. Or maybe I should say, its true fatal flaw is that there are a few areas that are points of no return. So if you saved, that's it. Nothing you can do, no going back and heal or buy items or nope, nada, it's game freaking over. Number 6, Suicen IV. Well, you're seeing it. The navigation at sea. There's no need to elaborate on something I've pointed out before plenty of times. I also have defended this game in the past because I keep insisting that it's good. In fact, it is the only RPG in today's video that I still recommend to everyone and that I believe it's very worth playing. Because you still have the Suikoden characteristics that make the series so great. 3 battle systems, the strategy war battles and the duels included, as well as the turn-based system. Sure, it's downgraded to 4 allies instead of 6, but that's not really a fatal flaw, is it? And I'll have you know, the game's got the best duel system across the series in my opinion. Good story, good music, decent graphics, everything's great. It's just this stupid ocean navigation on your ship from point A to point B that you do every so often, and with annoying random encounters no less, and it takes forever to get there. Yes, it's a fatal flaw for many, I admit it, but I still recommend it. Number 5, Puzle Quest. I've been wanting to talk about this game for a long time, but I never could because it's not a JRPG. It's an Australian RPG from a popular series with games available on many different platforms. This is the first in this series, and I'm covering the PSP version. It's basically quest-driven, kinda open-worldish, but everything is controlled by the menus on this overworld map. Exploration is merely by moving your icon character from point A to point B back and forth between areas to follow the Queen's commands, accepting quests or side quests, recruiting characters, etc. Decisions also affect the many different routes and endings available, and with which type of organization you ally yourself with. However, the battle system is played in this bejeweled style. You know, you have to make 3-row matches with the colors to make them disappear. So one color heals your HP, another your MP, and another one attacks the enemy. It's turn-based, so you do one match and the enemy does another. Money is there as the only way to earn it, also by doing matches. Skulls can also be used as a 3-way match to cause more damage. Skills can be applied during your turn, which act as attacks, buffs, debuffs, and the like, but you have to fill up their bar by, you guessed it, doing matches on the board. The enemy can do everything that I just described to you, but the fatal flaw which ruins this game is the RNG. It can make some battles against bosses or regular enemies extremely easy or extremely hard, because it all depends on how the board is laid out and how the colored tiles appear in from above. So imagine how this sometimes greatly benefits the enemy, or especially the bosses, so they start abusing their skills against you, which means your best bet apart from having a lot of good luck is to grind. But grinding takes forever since each battle takes forever, of course, so you'll be spending hours and hours just mindlessly fighting random enemies, all to match the boss's level and still die because of stupid RNG. I love this combat, so I made it far into the game, but this RNG crap eventually ruined it for me. Number 4, Sword of Ethereia. This is an action RPG by Konami, only released in Japan and Europe. It was a commercial failure in both regions, which is why Konami didn't bother bringing it over. The world is controlled by a bunch of evil gods who brainwash powerful warriors known as Katinas. 3 of these Katinas start slowly realizing this as they lose control of their abilities and special armor. 15 years later, the protagonist Phil lives in a peaceful village with his little sister, but she gets kidnapped, so he sets off to rescue her. Surprisingly, he also seems to be a Katina, so he teams up with the sexy Elmira and Leon to rescue his sister and defeat the evil gods. Trust me, it sounds generic, I know, but the story's somewhat dark. Despite its crappy localization and terrible English dub, do yourself a favor and find a ROM with Japanese dub. Anyway, the combat is hack and slash, and you'll go through missions with no towns in between or overworlds like in traditional JRPGs, just a base of operations with a menu interface to select the difficulty of the next stage. You can also create items and equipment here since there is no shop to buy them. A training section is also there that I highly recommend to learn the basics of combat. Because you see, the point of battle isn't just to mindlessly defeat your enemies. For some of them, most likely the boss fights, you'll need to create chain attacks, and that's where its fatal flaw comes in. To achieve this, you need a gauge bar to fill up by aerial combos, but once you use it, you're supposed to hit the enemy at the right time so it can be launched towards a party member so they can do the same like in a baseball game, hence creating a death blow. Of course, all 3 characters need to be in a near-perfect triangular precision to make this work, and since the AI is freaking stupid here, it really works, and it takes a long time to learn how to make it work. And yes, this is indispensable to kill the bosses, otherwise you'll just be brute forcing your way against them with barely, and I mean barely, any damage. Why is this death blow feature indispensable? Why couldn't it be something optional just to do more damage? How convoluted and inaccurate it is ruins the combat system 100%. It pains me because in everything else, this game just seemed to be great. Number 3, Final Fantasy III. This is a full remake of the original Famicom game that never left Japan. It's also digital on PSP, but I played the Nintendo DS version. And, well, it's really easy to explain the fatal flaw of this game without going too much into detail. It's boring. It's just freaking boring. Every time I go back to it, the first couple of hours are interesting with the introduction of your characters and all, but then you're off on your own and you just start drifting into space, as in you start spacing out. You unconsciously want to find something, anything more interesting to do rather than to play this dull game. Why is it such a slugfest? Probably because there's barely anything going on. It's just as generic as it gets, classic, traditional, barely any plot, barely any character development, just quests, fighting in regular turn-based, that's nothing special, grinding... I'm getting sleepy just by talking about it. This is why I have only covered this game like once in my entire YouTube career. It may have been great and innovative for its time, but nowadays it just feels like something you've played 1,000 times before. There's nothing to it. You know what? I find most Kemco RPGs more engaging than this, and that speaks volumes. Number 2, Persona 5 Strikers. Okay, here's another one that I still recommend a lot despite its fatal flaw. But really, what this game did is just unforgivable. I don't need to tell you what's it about, because it's a super popular game. A direct sequel to Persona 5, now in the form of an action RPG with some Musou elements. It's great. Problem here is that you can only have 4 playable characters during every mission. All the others stay behind and don't gain experience, and therefore they don't learn new skills with their personas. Sorry for the big spoiler, but trust me, you need to know. The final boss requires you to use all of them. That's right, every single character, including the ones you didn't train. I fucking hate when RPGs do that, especially when you've already completed the entire mission and can't just get out to grind without having to restart the whole stage. No other Persona game in existence does this to you. Only this damn brawler. So now you know that you need to train them all, so you don't get stuck at the end like I did, having to decrease the difficulty to easy and win by some insane miracle. Number 1, Death End Request Code Z. So this game came out yesterday as of the making of this video, but it's been out in Japan for a short while. First thing you need to know is that it's not the third main entry in the series, it's merely a spin-off. Sadly, it is the plot itself, the narrative and the script, that ruins this game in a colossal way. It follows Sayaka, who may or may not be Ripuka from the first game, in what seems to be a parallel universe. One where Arata, the hero of the first game, is now a demented evil bastard tormenting the girls, including Sheena, the heroine of the first game. So they're about to die at the hands of Arata, but then shit happens, they make it out into the normal world. One world where Sheena starts pretending nothing's happening and Sayaka is clueless, confused and estranged. However, she starts living with Sheena and working at the game company developing the fictional sequel to the MMORPG they were doing in the first game. Mai from Dead End Request 2 also works here. The plot goes on from there to endless and mindless dialogue full of nothing but stupidity, mediocre and uninteresting slice of life garbage. Yuri themes were there in the previous 2 games, getting worse with each entry. Well, here they finally reached the last straw for me with totally in-your-face jokes, like Lily here being absurdly obsessed with Sheena. She just goes on and on and on, turning the narrative extremely pretentious. The visual novel crap is just ruined by the insane amount of boring dialogue. And where does that leave our sexy and busty Sayaka here? Straight into the void with zero character development. The game was banned from Nintendo for being too violent and sexy, if you can believe that. No Switch release exists, it's only on Steam and PlayStation, which means you can expect censorship. The gameplay is 80% a cringe visual novel and 20% a roguelike. Yup, a la Mystery Dungeon, where you move when the enemy moves on grid-based top-down view maps. As you advance with Sayaka or any other character, you defeat monsters and find items. You might surprisingly die because of a trap or an enemy killing you, which leads to a gruesome dead end, hence the name of the game, but you retain items and levels, which is the only good thing I found here. However, you have to constantly use items to suppress your madness level because if it fills up, Sayaka goes berserk, but another bar is there for you to fill up to have her transform to do massive damage while fighting or exploring for a short period of time. So basically, it's a decent roguelike with a few twists that could make this mess of a game interesting and great if it wasn't for its horrible teenage Reddit humor drama embracing its insanely convoluted plot. There's one more bastard that should be in this video, but that needs its own damn video. Oh yeah.